All right. So this is going to match up with assignment number 8. We don't have too much writing today with like about the steps or vocabulary. We don't have much of that. We're just going to do lots of examples. Okay? So whenever you're solving a equation, any equation, I don't care how many steps, there could be 10 steps to solving it, your goal is always the same, and the goal is to isolate the variable. What would be another word for isolate? What's isolate? Huh? Separating it from the main equation, all right.
Socially distance.
Socially distance, okay, that's a good 20/20 explanation on that. So isolating means just taking something and getting it away from everything else. So if we're isolating the variable, we want to get that variable separated from everything else by itself on one side of the equation. And we typically see the variable on the left side of the equation, but we need to understand that it can be on the right-hand side of the equation, and that's fine. All right? So to be able to get the variable by itself, today it's only going to take 2 steps. The first step is always going to be to add or subtract. Okay, very important that our first step is to add or subtract away from the variable. And then our second step is going to be to multiply or divide. Now, some people really get confused with that because it's the opposite of the order of operations. So I think once you kind of get into doing it, then you won't even think about the fact that you're doing adding and subtracting before multiplying and dividing. But just keep that in mind, all right? Now, again, today it's integers, so positive and negative numbers, but we will not have any decimals or fractions today. No decimals or fractions. So what that means is once you get your assignment, if you're doing your assignment and you get an answer that is a decimal or a fraction, that means you made a mistake, okay? So, all right. Let's write this first equation down. Now this one shouldn't be too challenging for people, I wouldn't think. Again, first thing that I always do when I look at an equation is I find where is my variable. So okay, here's my variable right here. And then I think about if I want to isolate it, I want to get the 3 and this 7 away from it, okay? So first thing is looking for your adding and subtracting. I see subtracting 7. So I want to do the opposite of subtracting 7, which is adding 7. Now, for right now, I would like for you guys to practice showing your steps. Eventually, and once I feel confident that you're good with these integers, then I'm not going to make it a requirement for you all. But again, right now, let's practice showing that step. So your minus 7 and your plus 7, that's 0, so that's gone. And you can bring down your 3m. I really wanted to use black here. And then we have 8 plus 7, which is 15. All right, so first step completed. Second step is going to be to multiply or divide. So if this 3 is right up next to the m, that means 3 times m, and the opposite of multiplying is, so we're going to divide by 3, multiplying by 3, dividing by 3, that's like saying 1, so gone. And you have your m by itself, which was what we wanted. 15 divided by 3 is 5. Done. Now, usually I want the whole answer, m equals 5. But this year, since we're having to do the Google form of submitting answers, when you submit your answer on the Google form, just put 5. Okay? You do not need the m equals or the variable equals, whatever the variable may be. Just the 5 on the Google form. Okay. Let's get a little bit harder then. You can see over there we have that negative 10, so it makes it a little bit more challenging. 6m plus 2 equals negative 10. Any ideas on what we should do first? What our first step should look like for this problem, Dean?
Do minus 2.
Good. So you see this plus 2. You want to do the opposite of plus 2, which is minus 2. Now, very important to have that minus sign in front of your 2 over there because you need to be really thinking, is this a positive 2 or a negative 2? Remember, positive and negative and plus and minus, it all's the same thing, okay? So minus 2 and negative 2 means the same thing. So on this side of your equation, your plus 2 minus 2 cancel, leaving you with 6m be very careful over there. A -10 and a -2. Same sign. Okay, so we're going to add the two numbers, 10 plus 2, and keep that same sign. So a -10 minus 2 is a -12. Second step then is to do what?
Divide by 6.
Divide by 6. So we want to get rid of this 6. I'm going to divide by 6. So divide by 6, divide by 6. 6's cancel out. M equals. Now, I would hope most of us know it's 2 or -2, right? Those are our two options, 2 or -2. This is a negative and that's a positive. So when the signs are different, the answer is negative. So -2. What makes these equations difficult for people that are first learning the integer rules is you have to have both sets of rules in your brain. You have to have your adding and subtracting rules, and then you have to switch to your multiplying and dividing rules. So that confuses people a lot of the times. So just take your time and really think about it. All right, any questions over this one? Great, doing well. Let's look at our next problem. -4m plus 6 equals 34. What do you think we should do first? Anyone have an idea? Denver? -6. So you see that plus 6, you know you're going to minus 6. Now another way to tell, like if you need what number you need to add or subtract, it's never going to be the number that's right up next to the variable. It's never going to be that coefficient. Okay, the coefficient's going to be your last step. So -6 over here. My 6's cancel out, leaving me with -4m. Another thing that people sometimes do is they aren't careful and they'll just bring down the 4m. So make sure if it's a -4m, you bring the whole thing down. 34 minus 6 is 28. Now you all are good with your multiplication facts, and you've probably in elementary school learned about fact families, like numbers that work well together. So if you're thinking about multiplying and dividing, 4 and 28, those work well together, right? Goes along with 7. All right, what are we going to divide by?
4.
Okay, so when we divide here, we don't want to just get rid of a 4. We want to get rid of that negative sign also. If we only divided by 4, then we'd be left with a -m. We don't want a negative m. We want a positive m. So if you have a negative coefficient, make sure that you divide by that negative coefficient. Okay? So -4's cancel out. A positive 28 divided by a -4 is? -7. Good. Signs are different, so it's a -7. Remember, signs are the same, positive, signs are different, negative. Any questions on this one? Super. Did you guys do some of these last year with Miss Knight? No? Okay. Some of you, all right, some of you are like, all right, I did this last year, and maybe you did it on your own. Okay, so what maybe would be confusing about this problem to some people? What do you think, Rachel?
It starts with the answer.
Good, it starts with the answer, right? The variable's on the right-hand side of the equation, and sometimes that like makes people's brain like, blah, I don't know. So remember, your goal is still the same. So even though this variable is over here, we still want it by itself, meaning we want to get rid of the 2 and we want to get rid of this -9. Which one do you think I should get rid of first? Right, so remember our coefficient's our last step. So the 2 is going to be our last step. We want to get rid of this -9. So how am I going to do that? Add 9. So an adding 9 goes underneath the -9. And then be careful, I'm going over here on the other side of the equal sign. Sometimes people like to put in like a barrier for themselves. I don't think probably many of you would need to do that, but if you find yourself having trouble keeping organized, you could. That's a strategy that you could use, okay? So what is 15 plus 9?
24.
24, okay, 24, I like that answer. And then we have 2m, and this is gone. All right, we're on to our last step. What's our last step going to look like in this one? divide by 2. Good. So our last step is getting rid of this coefficient. So we're going to divide by 2. 24 divided by 2 is 2's cancel out, so you have your m. Now I don't care if you leave it like this. Usually you'll always see your answer like this, like you'll flip your answer back around. But it doesn't matter. And again, on the Google form, you're just putting in a 12, so it really won't matter. Okay, we all good on that? Great. Why don't you try that one then? A little bit more challenging with some of those negative numbers. Alright, so your first step should have been add 3. Look to see if you did your first step correctly. Did you add 3? 29 plus 3 is 32. You should have brought down the negative 8m. And then to get rid of your negative 8, you have to divide by negative 8. So look to see, did you have dividing by negative 8? And positive 32 divided by negative 8 is?
Negative 4.
Negative 4. So again, on Google Classroom, you're just going to put in a negative 4. Good? All right. This one. See if you can do this one. This kind of problem usually tricks people. We'll talk about why once you've tried it. So some of you may have kind of found like, oh, this isn't working out correctly, and you have to go back, figure out what you did wrong. That's why I wanted you to kind of try it. Remember, your answer is not going to be a decimal answer. It can be positive or negative, but it definitely won't be a decimal or fraction answer. What are some answers we have out there?
10. Yeah, I got
10?
10.
Negative 10?
Negative 10, yeah.
So one or the other?
10 minus
All right, let's see what happens. Okay, now, the reason that I wanted to have this problem on here is because it gets a lot of people, because sometimes you get going, and you're just looking for that plus or minus, and you see -5, so you start adding 5. Did anyone start doing that?
No.
Oh, good job. All right, so that's sometimes, like I said, what happens to people if they get in a hurry, they just see this -5 and do +5. So remember, that is a coefficient. So what we really want to get rid of is this 7, and the 7 is a positive 7. So to get rid of it, we have to subtract 7. All right, so we have subtracting 7 over there. So my 7s are gone. Now, when you bring this down, did I do anything with that minus sign yet?
No.
Nope. So it has to come down with my 5m. So my coefficient is a -5 equals same sign.
Same sign.
Okay, so 43 plus 7, keep your negative sign.
But there's an even number of signs.
Wouldn't it?
Well, there only will be 2 integers better, so.
That's
Oh, you're thinking multiplying and dividing anyway. Okay.
And that's
All right.
different.
Second step, when we divide to get rid of our coefficient, make sure that you're dividing by a -5 and not a +5. Okay, we have to divide by a -5 so we aren't left with a -m. Now, over there, a -50 divided by a negative 5. If the signs are the same, the answer is positive 10. Positive 10 for our answer. So if you said 10, you were correct. If you said negative 10, maybe it was that you only divided by a positive 5. Maybe it was that you just forgot. Again, it's sometimes hard because up here we were adding and subtracting and we kept that sign. That was the rule. Down here, multiplying and dividing, if they have the same sign, it's always positive. So it's hard to keep those rules straight here in the beginning when you're first kind of new to integers. Okay, new type of problem. So the other option, we've done adding and subtracting, but our second step and all of the ones we just did, we're always dividing to get rid of it. So in these, you can kind of see, oh, it definitely looks different. It looks like a fraction, right?
Division.
So in algebra, we show division as a fraction. So I don't want you to think of this as a fraction. Don't let your brain overreact that this is a fraction. This is just going to mean division, and again, that's going to be our second step. So our first step is still going to be adding and subtracting. What am I going to do? First step.
Plus 5.
Plus 5. Now, if you recall, we did do the DMRA. DMRA had the one-step equation, so I was hoping to kind of set people up for that. So this wasn't like you haven't, I know you haven't done a lot of this stuff since March, maybe. Okay, so m over 2, m divided by 2, equals 11 plus 5 is 16. All right, so there we are. Next step, second step is our multiplying and dividing step. So once again, this means m divided by 2, and we need to get rid of dividing by multiplying. Do you remember how I said you should show multiplying in algebra? Parentheses. So to show that we're multiplying by 2, I'm going to put parentheses around my 2. Like that. My 2's cancel out. And 16 times 2 is 32. So honestly, these are actually easier to solve because it's easier to multiply than it is to divide. But people see that what looks like a fraction and then they forget what to do. All right, let's do some that have actually negative numbers in the problem. Actually, that one doesn't. Let's not do that one. That one does. Let's do that. All right, I'll give you some time to write it down if you'd like. You want to try it?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead and try it. I think we're ready for that. Okay, so hopefully your first step was to add 7, or sorry, subtract 7, get rid of adding 7 by subtracting 7. So we have a negative 2 minus 7, same sign, sum, same sign. So 2 plus 7 is 9, keep your negative sign. All right. Second step is to get rid of dividing by 8, so I'm going to multiply by 8. So I'm doing a negative 9 times a positive 8. Different signs, my answer is negative 72. So again, on your Google form, you would just write negative 72. Please don't put spaces, like don't do negative space 72. Okay, Google form doesn't like that. Make sure you don't put spaces. All right. Any questions? Doing great. Okay, how about this one? I know we have a restroom break in about 4 minutes or so. We're going to finish the notes and then we'll do restroom break, okay? We don't have too many more. Okay, first step, get rid of plus 12 by subtracting 12. So 1 minus 12 is a negative 11. Second step, you don't want to just get rid of the 4, you want to get rid of the negative sign also. So when you multiply, you need to multiply by a negative 4. Once again, that gets rid of your negative sign and the 4. So when we do negative 11 times negative 4, we get
44.
positive 44. Also, on your positive answers on Google Forms, don't do this. Don't put that plus sign in front of it. Just 44, okay? Just like normal. All right? You try that one. All right, your first step should have been, oh, that's listed second. So we had to go back to this 18. It's positive 18, so I'm going to subtract 18. So 15 minus 18 is a negative 3. Check to see if you had that negative 3. Next, I want to not only get rid of dividing by 15, but I want to get rid of that negative sign as well. So when I multiply, it needs to be multiplying by a negative 15. So again, that gets rid of your negative sign and your 15. So negative 3 times negative 15 is? Positive 45. Question?
Not a question, but
Yep.
my way of reasoning this is 1 minus 18 is 15.
Uh-huh.
That's 3.
Uh-huh.
So now you gotta figure out how you get 3. What divided by 15 is 3.
Mhm.
It's 45.
Right. So the way that you just explained your mental math of doing that is a way that a lot of people in here can do these two-step equations. But what happens when you don't practice these steps is when you get to the equations that have like 5 or 6 steps, then it all becomes a little wild in your head. Okay? So when it's just 2 steps, I think that yes, you're probably capable of doing it. But I'm kind of setting you up for success. Do you have that strong foundation of moving on to the harder equations? Okay? Baby steps. How many more we got? A couple more. All right, try that one. All right, first step was to get rid of this positive 14, so I subtracted 14. Negative 6 minus 14, same sign, sum, same sign. I like same sign, add and keep, but whatever. You all had Miss Knight, so she has that same, right? I know, right? Okay, then we have, don't forget, hopefully you didn't forget to bring down this minus sign, negative sign, minus sign, same thing. Hopefully you didn't forget to bring that down in front of your m/3. So we have to get rid of the 3 and that negative sign. So when you multiply, it should be multiplying by a negative 3. Negative 3 times negative 20 is positive 60. Positive 60. Okay. First step, add 7. So your minus 7 plus 7 cancel. Negative 1 plus 7, different signs, subtract. Take the sign of the higher number. So since the 7 was bigger, absolute value, it's positive, so it's a positive 6. Negative 1 plus 7. You could think you owe someone $1. You earned $7, so you had to pay that person back, and you're left with $6. Maybe money makes sense to you. All right, and then your last step, you're left with m over 2. So we're going to multiply by 2. 2 times 6, 12. All right, we have one more, and then we will be finished, and you'll be ready for your assignment. Go ahead and do that last one. All right, first step should have been get rid of minus 3 by adding 3. So 5 plus 3 is 8. Last step, get rid of this 4 by multiplying by 4. 4 times 8, 32. 32. All right, stop this video.
Yeet.